Thank you for joining us. My name is Corrine Zudoni. I am the editor-in-chief of Contracting Profits Magazine, Facility Cleaning Decisions Magazine, cleanlink.com, and a couple other things. But I also work in conjunction with our partners in the organization on building operating management and facility maintenance decisions. So today, this session is going to be talking about the relationship between the facility executive, that building management professional, and the building service contractors. So, who in the room, before we get going, who around here is a building service contractor? Do we have any contractors? Okay, couple. And the rest of you, are you overseeing your facility operations? Maybe you work with some contractors? Yes? Oh, you work with cleaning? Are you in cleaning? Perfect. Okay, do you outsource any of your specialty tasks? No? Oh, good for you. Okay. So I introduced myself. I'm going to let Jeff Carmon introduce himself here. So,
Sure,
yeah.
sure. Yeah, I'm Jeff Carmon. I work for a company called Elite BSC, Building Services Contractor, and we're a consulting company that works with what I would call in our industry small to mid-size building services contractors, revenues between, say, $1 million and $20 million. So that's our group, and we've got about 150 companies that are part of that group. But prior to working with Elite, I was with France Building Services. That's FRANTZ, not the country France. And we serve, we're headquartered in Western Kentucky, and we serve clients in central and southern Indiana, central and western Kentucky, and then middle Tennessee. And I've worked there for maybe 10 or 15 years, initially in business development, but then moved over into operations for a few years before I made the slide over into the consulting company.
Yeah. So, as throughout your career, you've had to work with a lot of clients directly, identifying their needs, figuring out what processes work, figuring out a proposed budget. What are some of the biggest challenges that you've seen, or commonalities that people can relate to here?
Yeah, and what's interesting, before I joined the before I joined the building services contracting industry, I was a medical practice administrator for about 10 years. And so I hired janitorial companies. And it's interesting having that perspective. And here's one of the things that I think that we can do from a building services contractor standpoint is understand the risk that you all are in selecting a building services contractor. You kind of put your reputation on the line when you decide to make a change from the existing customer or the existing company that you have. And so I think that's really important. But from the standpoint of if I'm a building services contractor and I'm talking to contacts that we deal with, the thing that I would say first of all would be is to help your building services contractor understand expectations. And we should, as building services contractors, kind of have a handle on that. You know, what are the things that we need to do on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis? I guess in other words, you could have a really well thought out RFP or a scope of services. I think that's kind of where it starts. It can't be exact because there's things that are gonna come up, but I think that's one thing. And then I think the second one really is to engage in the process. As building services contractors, we really want customers who engage with us. There are some building services contractors who don't want that, but most quality vendors really want to meet with you on an ongoing basis and have conversations about things that are going well. Come to you with proactive things that we can do to help make the building look better, make your job easier. So those are the things that I would say from, as we talk about the relationship. Yeah.
One thing I had a conversation, you bring this up, so I want to elaborate a little bit. I had a conversation yesterday with a building service contractor who she defined her role with her customers as being a partner. She was not a supplier. She was a partner. And as a result, that required communication, open communication, consistent communication and the mentality that I'm not here just to do a job. I'm here to be your partner to answer the needs that you need. So you alluded to that in your previous statement. So can you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, and I think when you're looking for a partner, I would guess if you are going out and you're considering bringing in, if you're doing it with an in-house team and you're considering, or you're currently using an outsourced provider, that partnership is important. So the question is how do you figure out who's a partner and who's not? I think the answer is you look for cleaning companies who have what I'd call a service model or a service framework. And we talk about, there's kind of the four pillars, and the first pillar is commitment from upper management, the leaders of the company, and that's a little bit hard to figure out in an RFP process. But the others are fulfillment. It's, what does your training processes look like? How do you onboard team members? How do you select team members? That's that idea that day in, day out, that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, and you can leave the building every night and not have to worry about it while you're sitting at your kid's ball game. That's fulfillment. The second one is proactivity. I would say in almost every building that's being cleaned, there's something being missed every night, whether that's a trash can or that's dust on a shelf. So those things are going to happen, but I would seek out a vendor who has a really good response model, not just to issues, but also to requests. We get requests from people who will say, hey, corporate is coming down to visit the plant. We need to get this place really spruced up. And so that would be the responsiveness piece. And then the last pillar, pillar number 4, would be proactivity. And that usually comes through in partnership meetings. So we'll talk about, like, we serve a lot of manufacturing facilities. What does your Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday look like? When it's time to renegotiate or adjust the price, when is your budget set? When does your budget start, so that we can get out a couple of months in advance, so that we're not coming to you after your budget's already completed? And so that part is where we really need the partnership to kind of come together. That's where we need the engagement from the building owners.
So we have predominantly facility executives here, right, versus the building service contractor. Yeah. So if you were them, what questions, as the BSC, what questions would you recommend they ask you? Say they're interviewing you for their contract. Yeah. What are some key questions that they could ask you, so that they can identify you, whether or not you're a partner or you're just a service provider? Yeah, that's a great question. I think first of all is ask what their service model or service framework is. And you can, if they look at you, like a dog that, you don't know what you're talking about, you can say, well, what is your plan for making sure the work gets done every day? What's your plan look like when we have requests? And then how often will we meet? The other part of it is who is going to be responsible for our account, and what's their frequency of visits? At France Building Services, we ranked, if you will, or put tiers for our customers, and we called them platinum, diamond, bronze, and gold. And so we said to them, you are of this level, and so we're going to visit your facility. We're going to have somebody in your facility at least once a week, or sometimes we had somebody that was on site. But those are the questions that I would ask, is dig into that, and really what's your onboarding? What is the first 90 days going to look like for us if we select your company? Yeah, that onboarding. Anyone who participated in the session right before this, we talked about culture and retention, which included onboarding, is a big deal. And that forward-facing worker, that person in the front line, is the one interacting with a lot of the occupants inside this facility. So it's important as a facility executive to ask those questions of your BSC. Yeah. And when I was thinking of an onboarding, there's certainly onboarding team members. When I think of onboarding is what does it look like? How are we going to approach that first 90 to 120 days that we're working in your building? Because that's really, we preach this a lot. Everybody, you folks in these jobs, you're putting your neck out there by selecting a vendor. And boy, we better make sure the first 120 days come off really well, or it's going to reflect on your decision making. So that's, we spend a lot of time talking about that even inside our company. Let's make that first 120 days a time when you can stand up and say, hey, see, we picked a really good company here to do business with. Yeah. And there's always that or that situation where whether you're on the facility side or you're on the contract cleaning side, where it's time for a difficult discussion.
Yep.
It's time for a price increase. It's time for, I need to address your nighttime crew that isn't doing X, Y, Z. You mentioned those trash cans that don't get emptied. How do you suggest both players address that hard conversation in order to come to the best answer?
Yeah, yeah, it's a good question too. I think the best way to do it is first of all, it starts with a relationship. I mean, you have to have a good relationship with the company you're doing business with. You have had to develop trust by them fulfilling and doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then when you have that in place, I think the conversations get a little bit easier. Not that they're not touchy, but I think it makes sense to say, hey, I have an issue I need to talk with you about. We're missing some items. We think your team member did it because we've got them on camera. How are we going to resolve that? And so I just think good conversations. I would warn about overreacting. Sometimes there's a tendency to say, your team stole something. You've been working with us for 6 months doing a great job, but tomorrow's your last day because somebody stole something. You may have policies in place that require you to do that, but I would just say there's sometimes, especially a vendor who's doing a really good job, there's grace that comes in when those kinds of things happen. But hitting it head on, and then you've got to have a vendor that accepts responsibility for it. They've just got to be willing to say, we're going to take this feedback that you've given us. It's very valuable, and we're going to go fix that so we can build that trust back.
Yeah, and the communication component is really essential. And it happens both ways. Building service contractors have interacted and had clients who are non-responsive. They're just you. I hired you. You deal with it.
Yeah.
But then there's also facility executives who have the same experience with their contractor.
Very much so.
That it's like, man, I have tried to call this guy 20 times and I never get a call back. Do you have any recommendations for how to mend that relationship or what to do?
Yes. So on the building services contractor side, on the cleaning company side, we need to schedule times that work for you. And so on our larger customers, when I would say a larger customer might spend with us $50, $60, $70,000 or more a month or more, we should be meeting at least once a month, what we call a partnership meeting, and where we bring an agenda in and there are items that make sense to you. When I jumped over into operations, I went to our first partnership meeting with a large customer, and our regional manager said to the person, well, how's things going? And I thought, whoa, that needs to be better. And so a building services contractor ought to come to you with an agenda that's prepared in advance, that talks about staffing, upcoming events, results of inspections, all of those things. Now, the thing that is frustrating is a strong word for a building services contractor is someone who's spending a lot of money, and we have a time and a day on the calendar, and that just keeps getting pushed aside. Hey, I'm sorry, I can't make it today. Let's do it next week. Next week gets pushed out. We realize that your all's plates are full, very much so. But one of the things that we can do is convert that agenda into a report and just send you that information. But ultimately, it's nice, at least, I don't know what the least amount of times, but it's good to do a face-to-face if possible. Yeah.
Yeah, and you learn a lot, actually. Those of you who work with a contract cleaning company, there are opportunities if you are strapped. If you find yourself in that situation where you're constantly extending that initial meeting, it might be because your workload is very high. A contractor could actually often help with that. They might do your cleaning, but now all of a sudden you are tackling a grounds care issue. Well, it's very possible your contractor can help you with that too. So it's advantageous for them to actually meet with you.
That's right. That's right. And I'll tell you, the other one is on pricing. And I didn't mention that. One of the things that's really helpful as you develop a relationship moving down the line with a trusted vendor is to have as much price transparency as you can. On the BSC side, I think it's appropriate for us to share with you how we developed our price, what's our estimated work hours, how we developed that, what are we paying our team members. Those are the two biggest pieces of the puzzle when it comes down to pricing a deal. On the flip side, if you're experiencing a situation where whoever is VP of Finance says, hey, we're looking at everything on the MRO budget, and is there any way that you can find some dollars in your budget to trim? That's a good time to engage in a conversation with your building services contractor, because they might say, well, why don't we do this? What are areas that we could clean 3 days a week? Or what are some areas that we could do to reduce the man hours? Because that's really where the only savings can come from, is reducing man hours or reducing our margin, which we're not
Yeah.
we're not that excited about doing, but we can do that. But I think the thing is these face-to-face meetings allow that transparency to bubble up, and for you to say, hey, listen, I'm kind of getting squeezed. Is there any way that you could help us out with our pricing? And 9 times out of 10, we're able to help.
Yeah, yeah. And for those of you in the room who do not contract out your cleaning, it's also an opportunity to talk to use that as an example to talk to your managers, to your executives. You should have a once a month meeting to talk about these exact same things. Where can we help? Where can we change? Things like that. That open communication is really, really helpful. That went very, very quickly. So I'm going to open it up to questions. Anyone have questions? Yes, right. There's a microphone right next to you. If you pick that up and turn it on. You don't have to stand if you don't want. You could just have to flip the switch.
Hey there.
There you go.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Quick question for you. In terms of the tier system you were talking about for proactive visits, how do you frame that to the customers who may be on the lower end of those proactive visits without it kind of coming across like, in the wrong way? Because I like the idea, but I just am curious how you navigate that.
Yeah, it's a great question. And we don't internally, we talk to our folks and say, these customers are our bronze level customer. We would never say, we're only going to visit you because you're a bronze once every 2 weeks. No, we just set it up. And so when we're in the sales process, I'll just look and say, I won't even say based on your pricing. I'll just say, we're going to have somebody in your building at least every other week. And if you want them more often, just let us know, because we typically have capacity to visit more often. It's just in smaller accounts and even larger accounts, everybody's busy.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah,
I appreciate it.
It's a good question.
Any other questions for Jeff? Okay. All right. Well, I just want to thank you for your
Thank you.
time today.
Thanks,
I hope
everybody.
you guys all learned something. And if you have questions that you want to ask privately, you're welcome to come on up. Thanks so much.
Thank you.